Oh, the pain! Oh, I'm a tough guy. Oh, shit.
UFC fighters are known for their incredible athleticism, skill, and determination. But what many people may not realize is just how intense their training regimen is. From grueling workouts to strict diets, these athletes put in countless hours to prepare for their fights. In this video, we will take a closer look at just how crazy the UFC fighters have to train to compete at the highest level. How many hours do UFC fighters train a day? The number of training hours for UFC fighters can significantly vary based on their rankings. Higher-ranked fighters often earn more money, which allows them to dedicate more time to training, whereas lower-ranked fighters may need to juggle additional jobs to support their careers and families. At the start of their careers, many lower-ranked UFC fighters do not make enough money solely from fighting. Consequently, they often supplement their income with full-time jobs and fit their training around these commitments. Typically, these fighters might train approximately 4 hours per day, split into 2-hour sessions in the morning and evening during weekdays, with longer sessions on Saturdays. They usually take at least 1 day off per week for rest and recovery. In contrast, fighters who have achieved higher rankings and greater financial success can focus more intensely on their training. They may invest around 6 hours or more per day. For instance, the renowned UFC fighter Conor McGregor has mentioned starting his day in the gym at around 7 a.m. and continuing until 1 a.m., driven by his relentless pursuit to perfect his techniques. What type of training do UFC fighters go through? The type of training UFC fighters undergo is largely determined by their fighting style and foundational disciplines. Many successful fighters have backgrounds as high-level strikers, such as those trained in Muay Thai or kickboxing, or as accomplished grapplers, including Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, Sambo champions, and even Olympic wrestlers. However, it's important to note that while recent UFC fighters often rise through the ranks of amateur MMA organizations, blending various martial arts from the outset, many champions initially specialized in specific combat sports before transitioning to MMA. To excel in the octagon, fighters must train in multiple disciplines. For instance, skilled grapplers need to develop their striking techniques, such as boxing and kicking, to become more versatile. Conversely, experienced strikers must learn grappling arts like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to defend against takedowns and wrestling to counteract opponents aiming to ground them. Typically, fighters devote 2 to 6 hours per week to striking or full MMA rule sparring. Though sparring is generally light and technical to minimize injuries, it still presents a higher injury risk compared to other training activities. More intense sparring sessions occur during fight camps to prepare fighters for actual competition. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu sparring often starts on the knees to reduce the likelihood of injuries associated with striking or standing grappling. How long is a camp before a fight? Fight camps typically span 6 to 8 weeks and involve ramping up both the frequency and intensity of training sessions. However, the duration and nature of these camps can vary depending on individual circumstances. For instance, some fighters may extend their training period if their fights are postponed or if they are preparing for a particularly high-profile bout. In such cases, a fighter might engage in prolonged conditioning and strategy adjustments to ensure peak performance. During a standard fight camp, fighters refine their techniques, increase their cardiovascular conditioning, and engage in rigorous sparring sessions to simulate real fight conditions. These camps are meticulously planned to balance skill enhancement with physical conditioning, often incorporating specialized training for strength, agility, and endurance. Additionally, fight camps often include mental preparation, such as working with sports psychologists to develop mental toughness, strategic planning sessions with coaches to devise fight tactics, and nutrition planning to achieve optimal weight and energy levels. How do fighters train every day if they don't have fights scheduled? The daily training regimen of UFC fighters can vary greatly between individuals, but the majority remain dedicated to their training even between fights. Continually honing their skills is crucial, as there is an endless array of techniques to perfect in mixed martial arts. While fighters can ramp up their cardio and conditioning closer to fight dates, completely pausing their training regimen can lead to unfavourable outcomes. Many fighters maintain a baseline level of physical and technical training year-round to ensure they remain in peak condition and ready to quickly transition into more intense fight camp preparation. This consistent effort helps them build on their existing skill set and stay competitive. Diet and nutrition also play pivotal roles in a fighter's training regime. Some fighters may indulge in less strict dieting between fights, opting for high-calorie treats and comfort foods. For example, Paddy Pimblett, a popular UFC fighter, is known for occasionally enjoying cheeseburgers, beer, and other calorie-dense foods during his downtime. However, this indulgence is typically temporary, and fighters usually switch to strict nutrition plans as they approach training camps to optimize performance and weight management. How long do UFC fighters rest after a fight? Most UFC fighters typically take a week or two off from training immediately following a fight to allow their bodies to recover. However, if they sustain significant injuries, this recovery period may be extended to accommodate physical therapy or surgical procedures necessary for repairing the damage. Additionally, there are mandatory medical suspensions imposed by athletic commissions, dictating the minimum waiting periods before fighters can return to the octagon. These suspensions ensure that fighters have sufficient time to heal and undergo medical clearance. The length of these suspensions can vary based on the severity of the injuries sustained during the fight. How do UFC fighters recover after training? Various recovery methods are employed to ensure that fighters recuperate effectively after training sessions or fight nights. Given the physical demands and risks of mixed martial arts, injuries are not uncommon. Many fighters require medical attention, and in some cases, surgeries or implants such as metal plates are necessary to address injuries sustained during fights, regardless of the outcome. The healing process can take multiple forms. Simple techniques like massages and manipulative therapies help reduce swelling and alleviate pain, enabling fighters to sleep more comfortably and accelerate recovery. Compression recovery boots are also popular for minimizing swelling while stretching. Cryotherapy and ice baths aid in relieving soreness and minor injuries. During training camps, the primary focus of recovery is to avoid overtraining, emphasizing the balance between exertion and rest to prevent diminished performance, irritability, illness, injury, and fatigue. However, some athletes argue that overtraining is a myth and that the real issue is under-recovery. On rest days, most fighters engage in light exercises such as walking, biking, yoga, or swimming. These low-intensity activities help keep the body moving, which is more beneficial for recovery than complete inactivity. How often do UFC fighters fight? On average, UFC fighters typically compete 2 to 3 times a year. However, those actively climbing the ranks and seeking to make a name for themselves might fight as many as 4 to 5 times annually. Fighters on the independent circuit or participating in smaller organizations often have more frequent bouts, sometimes exceeding this frequency. While the increased activity can offer them more opportunities to gain experience and exposure, it also heightens the risk of injuries and can potentially prolong recovery periods, making it a less advisable strategy for long-term career sustainability. The pacing of fight schedules is crucial for managing both physical health and career progression, and more seasoned fighters often adopt a balanced approach to maintain peak performance while minimizing injury risks. Conclusion: being a professional MMA fighter demands significant sacrifices, including countless hours in the gym, strict dietary regimens, and a commitment to foregoing indulgent activities like drinking and partying. This career often necessitates time away from friends and family, and in many cases, fighters may need to take on secondary jobs to support their fighting aspirations. Despite these challenges, fighters must understand the importance of rest and recovery to sustain a long and successful career. Icons of the sport, such as Charles Oliveira, Randy Couture, and Dan Severn, have all exemplified the balance between intense training and adequate recuperation.